What is happening, people? Welcome back to the Brothers Geek Out channel. It's G-Man out here in Singapore. Hope everyone is well. This is my Miss Marvel episode 5 spoiler review and breakdown, and everything that I took away from this episode. So let's get into it. Episode 5 was called Time and Again. Now, this episode was mostly based on the partition. It was based on Aisha. We get a chance to see her background and story and what happened with the whole train situation that they've been talking about, where her grandmother was following the lights. She got lost and she followed the lights to find her way back. Ultimately, it's looking like by the time you get to the end of the episode, it was Kamala who kind of guided her grandmother with the light. So kind of like her destiny sort of thing, going back in time and everything. This was an interesting episode because it did talk about the partition. I don't see much about that in, history and Hollywood. I guess it's out there, but in regards to like mainstream media, you don't see much about, or mainstream Hollywood or whatnot, you don't see much stories about the partition and the hardship that people went through, especially from a Muslim perspective. I would love to ask again, maybe it's something I should ask my father about in regards to the Bangladesh perspective, or even see if he knows any stories from what my grandfather went through and my grandparents went through during the partition. So I don't know much of the history as I should do, right? Obviously because I'm freaking Bengali, so we're definitely involved in that. But it was a great episode, I think, to highlight some of the struggles that people went through. And again, from a Muslim perspective, I mean, in the day and age where, everyone the media portrays Muslims as terrorists and all this sort of stuff, there's shit happening to Muslims all over the world, be it in China with the Uyghur Muslims, in Palestine, all over Syria and Yemen and all those sort of countries. Nobody really cares. With those refugees and what's happening to those people, it's not in the mainstream media. Nobody really gives nobody really cares about it. But to show this, and I know this was history, but to show the fact that what Muslims went through, they had to separate buildings and stuff, and whatever, their villages will be attacked. It's happening now in India. I just didn't even mention that. It's happening now in India with the new government regime and whatnot. Muslims are getting destroyed and killed, and villages burnt down, and businesses broken down, and people just slaughtered on the streets. Now, you know what I mean? Let alone back in 1940s, it's happening now. So it's a deep episode. I think there's a lot to it. It could it expresses a lot of history, and I think a lot of people don't know about in that region or have forgotten about. And even with myself, I think it's more for me to learn as well, and maybe it's something I should ask my parents about. But it opens up so it opens up with an old Hindi tune. I think it's called Tu Jom Abida by Abida Praveen Nasibola. I think so. I don't know. That's what I checked on Google and whatnot. It turns black and white, so the whole Marvel logo turns black and white, like it's going to be an old school sort of Hindi sort of movie. In 1947, it goes back and it starts talking about the partition, some of the news that was coming out there with the partition, and about the Pakistani Muslims who had to be who segregated away from India, basically. So you had all of India, which was more predominantly Hindu and supposed to be more kind of mixed, and then you had the west side and east side of India, which was for more the Muslim community, which turned into Pakistan and East Pakistan, and then East Pakistan, Bangladesh got our independence from there in 1979, I want to say. So I'm gonna get shot, man, for not knowing my history, but I know March 26th, which is my birthday, is the Independence Day of Bangladesh, so I know that for sure. I believe it was in 1979. They do talk about the British strategy of divide and rule, and that's what the British and the Europeans have done for centuries, right? There is speculations to say that this is why all these problems are happening in the Middle East and all these sort of countries, because of the British Empire and the idea of segregating and splitting and dividing. Maybe that was just a strategy they used in order to divide, to conquer, get people to, and it's happening now, right? You see in politics and stuff now, like you segregate the people, you split them up, and it's an easier way to conquer, right? In nowadays, you've got the red and blue and the governments and whatnot. You get people so in their one-sided tribe that it's easier to overcome and conquer, rather than unite. If you united everyone, then really governments won't have as much power as they think as they would. But the moment you segregate them and split them up, it's a strategy. And I think, you know, when the Brits were doing their empires and whatnot back in the days, that was a strategy that they took, and I guess it worked. You know what I mean? So it comes down to, I guess, war strategies or conquering strategies, dividing the same people that we look alike, but just we have little beliefs. All right, religious beliefs is maybe a big thing, but you split them up by those beliefs, and then you turn the country against each other, and then, you know, you come in and conquer. So that's what the British done, and that was always their strategy. I mean, they ruled India over what, 200 years or something. It goes back to 1942, where we'll get into Aisha's story. She's on the run, as you can see, from, I think it's carrying on from the episode, what was it, episode 3, when we first saw her get the bangles, and they went on a run and they split up. So you see her on the run, she kills one of the British soldiers. The Marvel logo turns Hindi. Oh, the Marvel logo, the Miss Marvel logos. Then it goes into the Miss Marvel logos, and they're all in, I guess, in Urdu and Hindi and different languages and whatnot. I can't read them, so, but it looks like it's all Urdu and stuff. Aisha took interest in her granddad, whose name was Hussein, I believe. It looked like when she kind of stumbled across this village, he was talking about his leadership, and he was talking about uniting and let's not fall into the British trap of divide and conquer. Let's unite as a race. This is our land. India is our land, as one. Muslims, Hindus, whatever. We're all together. So I guess she felt a bit attracted to that. What else we got here? What you seek is seeking you. So okay, so that comes up in so there's a relationship between Aisha and Hussein builds. And then he mentions to her, he says what was on the bangle, which we find out in the last episode, the quote that says, "What you seek is seeking you." And I believe there's a poem from Rumi, a Persian poet in the 13th century. No one buying this place. So then you get to an episode where we get to the part where it talks a little bit more about how Hussein and his business and what's happening in the village towards the Muslims. So no one's buying his flowers anymore. No one's selling milk to Aisha because they're Muslim. So again, it's you know, people get that hate that I don't get it, man. But it's just a human thing. People get so hatred. They don't even want to sell you milk. You know, they don't even want your money. That's how much they hate you and whatnot for your beliefs or whatever it is. So it just talks about the hardship of what people have to go through, not being able to buy milk. They had a friend there who looked like, I think, maybe a Hindu Indian who provided them milk and whatnot. So, you know, you always had good people as well that was there to support. But, you know, some people just get programmed so much, and we've seen it throughout history where it's weird, like the general person will get programmed so well that you just end up hating this other individual that looks like you or whatever because of their religious beliefs or something like that. It's crazy that happens. But again, something that they showed, and we don't see much of this in Hollywood, to be honest. So to see it in a big Marvel, Disney production show, it's just a great way of expressing another form of history. Aisha meets Najma, so Najma comes back, who we know is the big bad of the series. She wants to get home. She doesn't care if it ruins the world and whatnot. But she meets Aisha wants to protect her family, so you can see again the human element. You know, once she got married, she fell in love, had a kid. You know, that human element of like, you know, yes, I wanted to go home, but if it's going to destroy this world, even though how hard she can see this world is, you know, her being, I guess she became a Muslim because she married Hussein, but her being a Muslim, being in where she's living, seeing what's happening to her family and to the village that she's living in, even though that's happening, she still has that human element of like, I don't want to go home and destroy this planet because she has a beautiful family. There's always that human element of family and love that was there. So she was doing that to protect her family. She didn't want to go home because also she made a home on Earth with the family as well. So they have to leave their homes after that scene, right? The village is getting burnt. They have to leave their homes, and they make their way to their trains, which will kind of lead them towards, I guess, Pakistan, because their village is getting burnt down by radical people and whatnot. Then she gives the bangles to her grandmother, to Kamala's grandmother, Sana. So that's the first time she hands the bangle over. She knows it's magical. The husband, Hussein and Aisha talk about it. Hussein never really questioned her about it, but he knew there was something magical there. And Aisha never expressed it to him until that moment. But she handed that over to Sana. Aisha tells Hussein about the bangles. And then after when the train, Aisha could sense that Najma was around, so she kind of confronts her. She lets Hussein and her grandmother Sana go. And then Aisha gets stabbed by Najma. Aisha activates the bangles to bring Kamala, right? And she says that quote, right? What you seek is seeking you. So she was able to activate that magic or something with the bangles to bring Kamala back in time. So now we're getting into the whole time travel thing. It looks like some kind of time travel thing or some interdimensional time travel. I don't know the relation with Endgame's time travel. Maybe this is a different kind of time travel because it's got more of a mystical and magical effect to it. I don't know. But anyway, looks like Kamala comes back in time, which was at the end of episode 4. It's like she was summoned there by Aisha. Given the fate to El, Sana follows a star. So yeah, and it looks like this was kind of like Kamala's destiny or her purpose. One element of her purpose of her becoming Kamala Khan and superhero and all that sort of stuff is that she comes back in time. She finds her grandmother, who was the one who got lost, and this is the story that they've told from episode 1. Her grandmother got lost and then found her way back on the trains by following these stars, which sounded like some kind of, mystical fairy tale stories and whatnot. And even in, her own mother didn't even believe her. And then people where she lived in Pakistan, the stories that she would tell, her grandmother would tell, Sana would tell, nobody would believe her. They'll think it's all just these stories and fairy tales and whatnot. But it looked like it was Kamala Khan the whole time that was the one that guided her with the stars. So that kind of links back. It kind of links back to that. And then after that, after she gets back on the stars, it was like her mission, right? It was like Kamala's mission. Once she got her on the train and guided her back to her father, Hussein, with the stars, she got transported back into her regular in our regular day time. And then what happens? We see is the gate to the veil is open between the Noon and the Earth, their home and whatnot. The veil is open. So the veil, is open. So one of the members of the clandestines tried to go through. They get killed, destroyed. It didn't work. Then Najma, and again, maybe this is her human element. She finally figured it out, or something. Like she went into the veil, she closed it because the veil was going to get out of control and destroy the Earth. But because of Kamwan, she closed it. So I guess at that moment, she, even for her son, which is interesting, how does she have her son? I wonder if he's a clandestine as well. Does she fall in love with a human as well, or what? I don't know, but at that very moment, she decided that she does care about her son, and she decided to close the veil, sacrificing herself, and then for Kamwan, which gave a part of entity or power towards Kamwan. So we see him with his cosmic powers as well. So maybe that's how he gets his powers. Well, that's how he gets his powers in the show, from his mother and her sacrifice and closing that veil. And then Kamala's mom comes back, finds out she's this nightlight girl, the superhero that they've been seeing in New Jersey. Red Dagger gives Kamala, she says her goodbyes to Red Dagger. She gives to Kamala the red bandana, which again I think is another part of her costume. I think she's taking all these different parts of Pakistan and from the Red Dagger and whatnot, and that's what's going to ultimately give her her full costume and her full suit. Okay, so that her mother finds Kamala's chain, which is broken. She picks it up and it's in the symbol of Miss Marvel. So, maybe that influences the mother. Maybe the mother helps her with her costume now that she knows she's she's the nightlight, or whatever they call her. And she helps her with the costume. So when she sees that symbol, maybe she kind of stitches that into the costume. They have a bit of moment with the grandmother and the mother talking about referencing Bon Jovi again. Maybe that's the reason why she ended up in New Jersey, because of Bon Jovi. Back in New Jersey, you see Kamran finding Bruno. They have a bit of a moment. They wanted to kind of reset. I think Kamran generally, he needs help. He didn't know who to go to, so they kind of just refreshed between Bruno and Kamran. Seemed like Kamran generally didn't even know that his name was Bruno and thought it was Brian. I don't know. He sees the poster of Tesla on the of Bruno's room, and he mistakes it with cars. He goes, "Are you into cars?" Obviously, I think he's talking about Elon Musk and the Tesla company, whereas Nikola Tesla was, I guess, the inventor of electricity back in the days. Anyway, he was an inventor. We found out Bruno was also an orphan. What's his name? Kamran thinks that he's waiting for his mother. I don't think he knows that his mother's dead, obviously. So he thinks he's waiting there, but not knowing that he is an orphan as well. Found out Bruno's an orphan. We don't know nothing about his parents unless they've said something, and I missed it. And then at the end, you see Damage Control come after Kamran, and then they blow up Bruno's shop. Damage Control doesn't seem like they have any control, man. I mean, they blew up. How could it be Damage Control and then just blow up, Bruno's shop, rather than chasing after Kamran or apprehending him in a more less destructive way? But anyway, that's how the episode ends, and the final episode, I guess, will be. I mean, looks like Najma's dead. So the battle between the kind of clandestines and whatnot is probably done. I don't know. But the last episode seems like it's going to be about Damage Control. Kamala coming back. I think she's going to have a new. Obviously, she's trained a little bit with her powers. I'm assuming it's going to be the finale, right? So we're going to get a final costume, see what happens with Kamran, and then I am expecting someone to show up. I really am. Be it Monica Rambeau, be it Carol David Danvers herself. Someone's going to show up. I really think so, just to kind of lead it into the Marvels movie that's coming up. Anyway, so that was my quick breakdown, everything that I took away from the episode. I'm looking forward to the final episode, which is next week. I'm enjoying the show. Like I said, I do feel the representation in it from a cultural perspective, the history that's on the partition and stuff, which has got me more keen to maybe ask my father more stories about the partition from what he might have known or what he might have heard from my granddad. But yeah, I mean, they don't mention Bangladesh in this. They've had East Pakistan, which, like I said, Bangladesh got their independence from that. But interesting, good history, and I'm glad they're kind of putting this out there a little bit for people to recognize what happened back then. Anyway, that was my breakdown. Please like, dislike, subscribe, all that sort of stuff, and we'll catch you next week. Peace.